So before we get started, click that subscribe button and let's begin. I bought a $50 kindergarten full curriculum. It is 8 months of curriculum all planned out for you. That means I don't have to do any work. I looked through it a little bit and it seems like it's going to be kind of perfect. It has the worksheets that she's going to have to do and the worksheets that I'm going to teach her. It starts with the phonics, the sounding out words and stuff like that. So it'll start with, okay, when you have an E with an E, this is the sound it makes, kind of thing. So that's going to be pretty cool. The subjects that the full curriculum covers is language arts, math, and science. But it goes a whole lot deeper than that. It's 1,550 pages. For example, the language arts section says that it covers things like sight words and story prompts and writing prompts and writing practice, things that she's really going to need to work on this year. The math section says that it'll cover things like addition and subtraction, obviously the simple versions of it at first, and time telling and word problems. So that'll kind of be in the math and language arts part of it. And then the science says it'll cover things like seasons and living and non-living, vertebrae, non-vertebrae, weather, everything that a kindergartner learns in science. So the other subjects that I'm going to need to supplement are, I need to come up with some PE things. Now, I feel like I've been thinking a little bit too much about it. She's almost 5 years old. So naturally she is very active. I don't need to plan a whole bunch of PE, physical education activities. She will just naturally be active at her age. So, that being said, I also don't want to completely forget about it because I feel like it would be beneficial to maybe teach her a little bit of health and about her body while she's being active. So if that means I have to plan a PE activity here and there so that I can plan it around certain muscle groups so that I can teach her, that would probably benefit her a lot. We're going to cover a social studies, and that's going to be geography this year. So I think we're going to cover the bigger things like the continents and the oceans, and eventually get down to like the United States of America and move on from there to our state and then the 49 other states and learn some facts and bits of information, same thing, about all of the states. We also need to cover art, which again is easy for a 5-year-old because she just naturally wants to paint and color and be creative. I mean, she plays with Legos all the time, and that can be considered an art activity. So it'll be really easy to cover that subject as well. We need to make sure we cover things like character building and practical life. So for those, I want to do things like, practical life is things like brushing her teeth, and she's going to help us cook, and I'll teach her how to do the dishes, laundry, stuff that you would do in practical life. She's the perfect age to be learning these things. I'll give her small chores. She can fold her own clothes and put them away. Just practical life stuff. That's one of the things they want you to cover in your homeschool curriculum, at least in Ohio, to make sure that they can do all of these life skills. And then character building, I want to do things like volunteer. Once everything calms down, I want to do things like volunteer at your local pet shelter or homeless shelter. I want her to do random acts of kindness. I've seen them all over Facebook, and I would love to get her involved in that. I want her to do a Secret Santa where she, like in December, we buy a gift and she gives it to somebody without them knowing that she's the person that gave it to them. So it kind of teaches her that you don't need to be, I guess, thanked in order to feel good about doing something for somebody else. You don't need to be recognized in order for something like that to feel good. And I feel like that will really build her character. I'm going to cover sign language, which again, I have a big college book, which would be really intimidating for her. Granted, she likes going through it. Can't read it yet, but she likes to go through it. And I'm going to take bits and pieces out of that college book and put them in her sign language curriculum. So that's things like knowing how to sign numbers 1 through 10 and please, thank you, I love you, sorry. The simple things that you want your child to know that she knew when she was a baby, but we kind of fell off the grid and stopped working on it, and I regret it. So she'll know those things, and then I can remind her of her colors. So I have a whole bunch that I want to teach her. I think the first thing we're going to start with sign language, though, is teaching her how to sign "my name is," and then fingerspell her name, because she's very interested in the letters in her name. So it's perfect to teach her how to write her name and teach her how to sign her name at the same time. She might retain it better. Plus, if she comes across somebody, another random act of kindness can be that she is able to communicate with a deaf person. I don't know, I think that's pretty special at 5 years old to be able to sign even though you're not deaf or you're not hard of hearing. Now, there are certain things that if my full curriculum book doesn't cover, as far as language arts, math, and science, there are things that I'm going to want to teach her. For example, the health aspect, if they don't teach her about that. Or if they don't go into depth on certain topics that I want her to know. If they talk about dental health, but they never mention flossing, that's something that I feel needs mentioned, and I can always adjust it. It's not, I don't have to stick with the exact program. I bought it because it can cover a day that's kind of harder for me to sit down and do a lesson plan of my own, but it can also give me, as my first year of homeschooling, give me kind of guideline of what a kindergartner is going to learn. I do feel like I've been looking too much into it. It's her kindergarten year. She's almost 5 years old. She's not even 5 years old yet. A lot of her curriculum is play-based, and I feel like I'm looking into too much structure, and she's going to need a little bit more freedom, which is why homeschooling is so great. A lot of articles that I've read, I read all the time, a lot of articles that I've read say let them play and then teach them with the activity that they're doing or anything like that. If you want to print out a picture of a living and a non-living and teach them like that. Oh, you're coloring the living. Oh, you're coloring the non-living. They soak these things up So it might seem like you're just not putting much into it, but really they're going to remember that. Oh, I was coloring the plant. That means the plant is living. So I feel like my biggest thing that I need to tackle this year is to not think too much into it. We are going to do great. We are going to learn how to read. We know how to write our name. We're going to learn everything we need to learn this year. But I want it to be fun. I don't want her to get bored of it. And if I'm doing too much structure at too young of an age, she will get bored. The baby's about to wake up. I believe I've covered everything I want to cover. I just want to remind you guys to like, comment, and subscribe. Help support me. Maybe give you guys some ideas if you're thinking about homeschooling and just don't know where to start. I'm doing all the research anyways, so you can join.